that, went into the manga anime world because they loved American comics. Look at how Steranko decides to graphically tell us this little vignette by jump cutting. Like, this is something Sergio Leone is famous for in movies, with those intense cuts to these intense close-ups. But this is Steranko doing it on the comic book page. Look at this spread. At first glance, all of the things we're talking about, the use of coloring, the white space. Look at how, to get across the idea that Bucky is trapped in, that Rick Jones is trapped in this Bucky identity that he doesn't think he's qualified for, and Steranko literally puts him in the eye of the mask. We all were dying to see Steranko's take on the other Avengers, but you see some of these inks are a little flinty. You know? You either like what he did on Thor's hand, or you don't. You know, the face over there is good, but something... Again, some people love it, some people don't like it, and one of those people is Steranko. But, your mileage may vary, as they say in the internet these days. Remember I said nowadays you've seen the deaths of superheroes? Well, this is really the first real Silver Age death of a superhero, and I mean all the varieties of storytelling, the use of black to connote death. Look at how he breaks up Fury talking about, eulogizing Captain America, and cutting back and forth. The jarring cut to like an angel of death almost, in white, even though she's crying. Also very Eisnerian. This, once again, looks like photo reference to me, but Steranko knows how to use it to make it work. And then you get the Avengers are hit by gas, and Hydra takes their bodies away. Maybe photo reference, I'm not sure. Look at the beautiful stylization here of cars approaching in the darkness. That's a nice little, you can pick apart individual panels by Steranko, and you get a whole little primer on how to really tell a story using images. We get to another climactic bottom right panel. Look at just the time Steranko takes to do the silhouette of the cemetery headstones against the black of the hill. So you get silhouette, simplification, storytelling through figures moving. You can teach a course in comic book art pretty much in this one panel. Then you turn this page and look at what you're hit with. Steranko lettered this page, penciled it, and he inked it. He obviously did not trust Tom Palmer to ink one of his masterpieces. And that is one of his masterpieces. In fact, it reminds me of one of his from a year before. One of the S.H.I.E.L.D. masterpieces, where again, he does his own lettering and gives us this entire, basically those are his two great motorcycle double-page spreads. And then we get the great image. First of all, before we discuss this image, just look at what Steranko and Joe Rosen give us in this one image. A very sharp profile that highlights the whole black and white of Madam Hydra. The use of color versus black and white, blah, 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 blah. You heard it all. But there it is in one panel. And then our eye moves and follows up. Steranko's greatest Captain America image, one of the greatest Captain America images, an image that always reminded me of Steranko trying to do his best Frank Frazetta. In this, which is considered Frazetta's, if not greatest Conan, one of his greatest paintings, if not his greatest, and his greatest Conan image. He did a few of these Conan on a stack of warrior body, sort of triangular images, but it's really that first one that gives us that triangle, that everything about this image. Turn the page, another page of ads. A little funky anatomy there, but we'll forgive him. More interesting silhouetting. Now you get to the bottom right. Bucky, fire that thing as soon as the Hydra agents are near. Gotcha, Cap. You turn the page, and you're hit with this. Now remember I told you about that boom? I've got files of modern comic book lettering. I chose one. There's a million of these. Walt Simonson made a whole career out of doing stuff like this. But Steranko got this from Eisner, but we had never quite seen it as graphic as that, and that's why in my book I pay homage to it like that, but there it is in its original usage. And then as you follow the story along, look at what Steranko gives us for the final climactic image is another kind of bookend to the boom image by giving us this explosive image, pun intended. And knowing that we needed a rest, so Steranko gives us a rest with this crap. And then we get the final spread of the trilogy. People talk about modern comic art, oh, they're just doing pinup pages because they want to sell the originals. Well, this is maybe the first pinup page or spread that Steranko gives us that is also part of the story. It's not just close-ups. It's the point of the whole trilogy, to reestablish the partnership. But within it, Steranko still tells a story, and he reveals that, oh, that was a rubber dummy, and I put the mask on, blah, 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 blah. It's like Mission Impossible. So that they'll think I was Steve Rogers, and then your eye scans over, and we get the final panel. So this way, I've accomplished what I needed to. That now the world knows. They don't know necessarily that it wasn't Steve Rogers. They don't know who he is. And, oops, what happened there? I gotta fix that. Anyway, we pan over. I think we pan over. Hold on, what happened there? Well, something screwed up, but you get the idea that your eye pans over to the final thing. And this was Steranko's last superhero work for Marvel in 1969. The last things he does for Marvel before he leaves in 1970 is this horror story and this first issue, except this was Steranko's submitted cover, and Stan Lee or whoever did not like it, and they replaced it with this kind of regular John Romita knock 'em out job. But you open the cover and you got this mini masterpiece where everything we've been talking about what Steranko did on S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America, which are ostensibly superhero stories, he now brings to the horror genre and gives us a primer in comic storytelling. This style of high contrast work, Steranko would repeat the rest of his career. Other artists, everybody from Jaime Hernandez to Frank Miller, Sin City. I mean, I didn't want to extend this lecture to 2 hours showing you all the influences of this one single story. Then, a month or two later, in an oddball romance comic by Marvel with another mainstream Romita cover, you got Steranko's final story for Marvel, which was a love story. And for a love story, the graphic designer in him decides to change moods and looks and styles completely from that horror story, just like the Captain America trilogy went from psychedelia to gothic. A story about a Hollywood director falling in love with an actress or something like that. And here is the last final panel of Steranko's stay at Marvel Comics after fighting with Stan Lee too much over the integrity of Steranko's artwork and stories. How ironic. But he kept his foot in the Marvel game over the decades. 1969 or 70, this is a Christmas card that he drew. This is a 1970 interview, one of the very rare interviews with Steranko, that he drew this classic Captain America image, which decades later was colored for the first time. By the way, inked by Joe Sinnott. That image Steranko recycled in 1970 for one of his greatest Captain America images, which was a poster for Marvel Mania, which right after this lecture's over, I'll be going into the next room over there and talking about the 50th anniversary of Marvel Mania, 1969 to 2019. But look at the prominence that they placed Steranko's Captain America in with the rest of their merchandising, which included stamp collections like this. Look at that prominence of that issue 111 figure. And of course, Marvel Mania, I think the best things they made were these incredible posters, many of them, of course, by Jack Kirby, some of his greatest single images that he both penciled and inked. But they were friends. I mean, not only was Kirby a mentor, like he was pretty much to everybody, but you can see how much Steranko enjoyed Kirby's company. There they are at some early 70s convention. And Steranko was so enamored of Kirby, like we all were, that he got Kirby to contribute to that History of Comics in 1970 with one of Kirby's greatest Captain America pencils. And that was in volume 1. Here, of course, is the double-page spread. And you can see how prominent Steranko felt about Captain America to give him such prominence on such a major work of his. I mean, look, he even used the figure in the actual advertising of the first volume. And there's volume 2, once again, a fairly prominent figure. Look at his homage to Will Eisner. In the early 70s, Marvel starts its second fan club called FOOM, Friends of Old Marvel, and they somehow get Steranko, or Steranko offers, to do all of the graphics for the fan club. And he got to play around with Hulk again. Remember, from that first issue, he got to do his version of Hulk. Look at this mailer. That's Steranko, the graphic designer. And look at here, he gets the chance to not only do Hulk, but all the Marvel heroes in some kind of, I don't know whether this was an envelope for FOOM or something. I'm sure there are FOOM experts out there. But over the decades, Steranko has always kept his hand in with Captain America images, fully painted. These are more recent, just a couple years old maybe. Steranko, like most artists, is now rendering their images on the computer, so you can see the effects that he's able to get with the coloring, you know, without having a black outline. These are some recent Captain America efforts. And you can see that he always seems to return to that great image from Captain America 111 that I said has been the most reused image that we've seen over the years. Every time there's a collection of this trilogy that you can find in various versions. I mean, here's an English version that I got the trilogy from 1981, but otherwise you have to get it within collections of the work. And then, of course, there's the artist edition that is soon to come out. There was already volume 1, it might be out there somewhere. This will be volume 2, the later Shield issues, and the Captain America trilogy, but there again, of all the images to use, they use this image. And then I think, when you think of this classic images that all those things were based on, that I used as the primary image of this lecture, you know Steranko's made it when this I found on the internet not too long ago, and then I saw it in real life. He makes it to Hot Wheels! Now, of course, Steranko doesn't get a dime for this, you know, I don't think. But I just think of all the images they used for Hot Wheels, somebody at Hot Wheels in the marketing department must have been a comic fan. I bet you he sacrificed his job to get this image as the color. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my 50th anniversary of Steranko's Captain America. And, you know, I think we have time. You know, it's only 12:30. I think I have this room for an hour and a half, but we don't have to stay here. But I just want to show you a little bit of my work. If you go to my website, I hope everybody has a card and a brochure. If not, I have them up here, or I ask somebody to pass them around. But when you go to my website, you'll see various icons that you can click on and see my individual works. It's linked to my page, where if you don't buy a book from me here, you bastards, you can always, oh, sorry, I'll edit that out later. You can buy it from me directly, but I'll still sketch it and sign it for you. I'm also an illustrator working in a comic book style, and one of my specialties is keeping the photographic resemblance while also making it look like comics. Now, this next thing I'm going to show you is not my work, it's somebody else's, but I'm going to be a part, I think, of this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comic, because she revealed like a month ago something about Watchmen, and the fanboys swinged all over the world, am I right? When we found out that AOC loves comics. So, as soon as I found out about this on Facebook, God bless Mark Zuckerberg for the good he's done, I always loved this image of her, which I think she uses as her main image. To me, when I think of the Obama Hope poster and the cock of his head, I think of this image. So I contacted the guy, said, is there still room for me to go in? And I just did this image anyway. I think I'm in, but I'm not sure. But this is what I turned her into. And why did I turn her into this? Because go Green New Deal. And then when you go up to the top here, it's Washington, D.C. ain't seen nothing yet. And she's disapproved by both political parties, right? This is John Holmstrom, who in 1975 started Punk magazine. Anybody is a punk fan, they know what I'm talking about. This is a new newspaper that he's doing, a pro-pot paper. So I met him only a month ago, and I said, he said, Arlen, can you contribute anything? I said, you know, I'll come up with a marijuana superhero for you. So, the next issue, when you turn the page, you're going to be met with this. The origin of Dr. Cannabis, the green light of marijuana enlightenment. And basically, I don't know, I came up with some, you know, he's a scientist like Clark Kent. He somehow merges the THC with human DNA and then hypobotanic, what do I say here? Hypobotanically, blah, 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 you know the usual story. And he merges human DNA with marijuana THC and becomes Dr. Cannabis. And he's got the green light of marijuana enlightenment coming from his third eye. He's got a utility belt of endless super sativa. Now that's what I call the utility belt. And then he's got his very own catchphrase. How high are you? Not hi, how are you? How high are you? Okay, obviously it works. It works. Okay, so then you're going to remember Steranko, turn the page. Then you're going to turn the page and you're going to be met with this page. And I'm like teasing the readers. An upcoming episode, all of my Irish Snap homage lettering, Green Lantern logo. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I figure every issue I'll pick some marijuana in the news story, medical, legal. Look at what I did for psychological. Historical, creative, right? Everything I've done in my career, I've done with a buzz on. That's nothing new. Look at he's shining his green light on some new bud here, right? Consumer stories, and then my Irish Snap lettering. And that's what you'll get when you see that. I have high hopes, pun intended, for this character. By the way, remember this image of the marijuana energy? Who was I paying homage to? Hello? Jack Kirby, Kirby Crackle. I run a Jack Kirby group on Facebook, so feel free, email me, Facebook friend me. I run a Neil Adams group on Facebook. I run a Silver Age book on Facebook. I do a lecture on the Silver Age, pretty much like this. Today was one part of the Silver Age. For the Comic Fest at 1 o'clock, I'll be in the next room doing a 50th anniversary of Marvel Mania with the original Marvel Maniacs, Mark Evanier and Mike Royer. Tonight, 7 o'clock, I'm going to get to do, after 20 years of wanting to do it, I last did something about Ditko in 2002. This will be my Ditko story. Not my Ditko story, I mean my Ditko retrospective. So if you love Ditko, you got to come tonight, 7 o'clock. I forget where it is, Montgomery Room maybe. Here's one of his greatest characters, Mr. A, that I paid homage to when I did this memorial portrait of the great Baton Lash, who was, you know, one of the instigators here with Jackie Estrada. And I was very honored by Jackie when she used this image as the back cover of the New York memorial that took place a couple weeks ago. And then tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, it'll get me started on the Twilight Zone. But if you want to know why the Twilight Zone is the middle ground between 20th century surrealism that precedes it and psychedelia and modern art that follows it, if you want to know what the foundation is for our entire American popular culture in less than 6 degrees of Serling, if you want to know why there's going to be a new Twilight Zone TV series April 1st by Jordan Peele, come to see my show tomorrow night. I will blow your mind. And then Sunday, my last visual lecture on the 50th anniversary of Neil Adams' Batman. I worked for Neil Adams. I came of age with Neil Adams like everybody else out there in my age range that was affected by Neil. By the way, I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan. I was art director of his first fan magazine. In New York City, I've begun a relationship with a cabaret theater there, and I got to present like a visual lecture about Springsteen's greatest show. And then if you're in New York at the end of this month, I'll be doing my complete Twilight Zone show that's longer than what I have time for today in New York City. So ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much. And we can put the lights up and maybe we've got time for any Q&A.